Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son.
However, point to a greater joy that has not yet been fully realized. It is a joy that is promised to us, waiting for us. It is our eternal inheritance. While we live under the sun, we're living as if in a fog, the vapor and striving of hevel. But, one day, the hevel will clear and the fog will be lifted.
This devotional is exactly what I feel like I believe. That idea that we're not going to find full fulfillment in this life, but we can experience so much joy in the things that we've already been given. So the avoidance of striving after something we don't have, and instead finding joy and peace and contentment in what we do have, is how we experience heaven on earth. Because to me, heaven is that complete fulfillment and completion in God. And I believe God has brought us to completion in this life and offers us glimpses of that when we are able to maintain our focus on Him. We are fighting that with the distractions of the world, which is why I don't think that we often do stay in that place for a long amount of time. But I think that this is super hopeful because it shows us that if we can really tune our focus to Him, we get to experience full joy, peace, fulfillment, and heaven on earth. Hey Elaine. Alright, good work over the last few days. It's pretty crazy to see with the reduction in cardio and the increase in food, your weight's still coming down and you hit your, I believe the lowest weight I've ever seen of yours, which is 92.6, which likely came after having a really good night of sleep. I was so glad to see that. Now, as far as your physique goes, we're in a great spot. Definitely staying super tight, and we're going to just pull down activity a little bit more right now. With digestion, we've talked about how over time with reducing food and prep, it's somewhat normal, or we can expect that digestion will slow down as you just don't have as much going through your system. That said, one thing we can do to help support digestion on top of the supplement regimen we talked about is pulling back on activity. Activity levels, especially when you are in a deficit and your body is very stressed, more activity drives that cortisol higher, keeps your body more in that fight or flight stress state. So pulling back on activity, giving yourself a little bit more downtime can help stimulate digestion along with the other strategies that we're using. Hey Mal. Hey Sydney. Hey Sheila. Hey Oscar. All right, man, solid work this week. Hey guys, it is Monday, July 24th, and I'm currently making my first meal. It is 10:30 a.m. and as you saw this morning, I woke up around 5:40, which has been my go-to lately, and then I got ready and went to Jiu-Jitsu. I've been doing the early morning classes 4 days a week, and then on Saturdays I'll do either a class or an open mat. So in general, getting about 5 days a week of that. And then after that, I come home, get ready, go through my morning routine, which involves journaling, filling out my check-in sheet for the day. On my way to and from Jiu-Jitsu, I will do my morning devotionals and send Dee my response for the devotional that we do together. And then once I've completed like all my tasks for the morning, I'll start getting into my client work. So today, Monday through Thursday, that is client check-ins. And Mondays specifically are my prep client check-ins, which has been really exciting this year as I'm prepping more people than I have in the past and have some just incredible athletes who are so committed to the process, all on very different journeys with different long-term goals, but still equally committed to the process. And that has been really exciting. In preparation for my first Jiu-Jitsu competition, which is going to be on August 12th. I have been really focusing on performance and conditioning and recovery as opposed to just bodybuilding style training. I'm still weightlifting, but again, incorporating a lot more cardiovascular activity, really attending to my recovery, which has made my check-in sheets and needing to track my sleep, HRV, resting heart rate a lot more closely. And then with nutrition, I have been slowly cutting as I prepare not for this competition, but for a competition in October, in which I plan on competing at the lower weight class. So right now, this morning, my weight was 158.6, which is a little bit higher than it has been, but Dee and I had a really fantastic, amazing free meal on Saturday, and I think my body's still holding on to a little bit of that. So just staying objective with it, I'll continue checking my weight and adjusting nutrition accordingly. But part of my strategy with nutrition has been doing 3 meals a day, which has been working really well for me and my digestion and energy levels. And I usually won't have my first one till about 10 or 10:30. So I'll eat around 10, 2, and 6. And that's been a really helpful schedule for me where I'm able to keep those meals pretty big and filling, not feeling hungry or deprived at all, and having enough time in between that digestion is functioning pretty well. So right now I'm making my first meal, which is an omelet with on a bed of rice and cauliflower rice with avocado. And I will show you just kind of the rest of my approach today. My routine has changed in some ways, I would say quite a bit, but there's also a lot of things that work really well for me, like having a good morning routine, making sure I'm doing a check-in sheet, making sure I'm just having a consistent schedule from day to day as much as possible. But with my goals changing, my strategy has changed a bit as well. I'm just going to kind of walk you through my day, talk to you about the changes, and then as we move forward, I'm going to walk you through the changes that I make in preparation for this competition, how I adjust training, and then, of course, how I'm adjusting nutrition as I move forward towards the goal of cutting weight to a lower weight class. So I'm excited to share this journey with you. It's different than before. I'm obviously not focused on bodybuilding, so my approach is really different, but it's also an incredible learning opportunity. Because with a different approach and different goals, you got to take a different strategy, and that means learning what does it really take to be good in another sport or to prioritize different goals. And with that, I think the best part of this all has been learning a lot more about my body and learning how to optimize performance along the way. So I'll walk you through my day. Right now, again, having meal 1, I have my supplements with that. So I'm taking Super EPA, vitamin B complex, iodine, vitamin D, and 25 mg of DHEA. And then later in the day, I will take fish oil. I take 4 of the Legion Triton fish oil. And then this morning, you saw me take my probiotic. I always take my probiotic fasted, and I recently just started the seed probiotic. But I am going to be trying Viome because Viome customizes a probiotic and prebiotic blend based on your specific results of gut testing. So I'm going to do that, see what they specify for me based on my needs, and then I'll be trying that after I finish this round of seed. So I'll walk you through all that. But for now, let's get into the day. Client check-ins, had breakfast, answered my messages, and then I tend to do my Instagram post, and then I'll head to the gym around now, which it's about 12:30 now. I usually go to the gym between 12 and 1. I bike there, train, and then bike home. On Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I will lift weights, and on Tuesday, Thursday, I will do cardio only. Each day that I lift, I do a little bit of core, and then Saturday or Sunday, I'll do a little bit of extra cardio as well. And that's the one session that I'm still kind of playing around with. So today is a lifting day. It's Monday. I'm going to go to the gym, bike there, train core and pull, and then bike home and tackle the rest of the day from there. If you are performing any kind of weightlifting, I'd highly recommend incorporating foam rolling into your program. Foam rolling is a way to break up the fascia, which is connective tissue, kind of like plastic wrap that wraps around all of the muscles and joints in our body and is actually embedded within the muscle as well. When fascia gets tight and bound up, it creates kind of a wall that doesn't allow blood flow and nutrients to get into the muscle as effectively. So if you want to grow and you want to be able to grow for a long period of time, I'd highly recommend that you're incorporating foam rolling in order to break down the fascia. I recently posted on Instagram about my core training, but right now I'm really making sure that I'm training my core in multiple different ways. There's a lot of different functions of the core, more than just crunches. So it's important that you're training across the spectrum of function, especially if your goal is performance and not just aesthetics. I always have a flexion exercise like a crunch or a sit-up, and then I'll usually have more of a lower ab focused flexion exercise like a knee tuck or lying leg raise. Then I'll usually move into some kind of rotational movement. Now, in bodybuilding, you don't see a lot of rotational work because we tend to avoid development of the obliques, which can make the waist look wider. But in all other sports and for general health and wellness, I highly recommend building strength and stability in rotational movements. With a sport like Jiu-Jitsu, you're going to be rotating at the core, and it's important that you're able to control and stabilize around the spine. Dead bugs are one of my favorite core exercises. As you extend your leg and extend your arm overhead, that typically causes us to change the position of our rib cage and we lose tension throughout the core. But with a dead bug, you want to contract your core and press your low back into the ground. Breathe into that like your belly is a barrel. Breathe into that as you extend outward. It allows you to create stability regardless of the position of your limbs. This is going to be really important for things like overhead pressing when you want to keep your core tight and stable and focus on generating power at the muscle. It's also going to be really helpful for things like Olympic lifting where you're going to be moving into big, heavier overhead movements. And then usually I'll move into a plank, whether that's a normal plank or a side plank. Here you're generating and sustaining isometric tension throughout the core. This is a great way to build core stability, again, creating more force. When you're able to sustain force within your core, you can generate a lot more power on your big movements. This is really helpful for spine health as well, being able to create protection around the spine by generating a brace, and endurance of the core. It's a lot harder to hold a brace than to perform long sets of contractions like sit-ups. So make sure you're training across the spectrum of core function. Now, with this being a pull day, I start with one of my favorite exercises of all time, a shoulder width neutral grip pull down. This is a great way to train the lats, train the traps a bit, and just have a really well-developed back. I've been supersetting my movements on both pull and push days with a little bit of jump roping as well. I'm always focused on strength and building muscle, but at this point in my preparation for my competition, my priority right now is conditioning. I'm pretty close to the cutoff weight for my class, and I want to make sure that I'm able to sustain endurance throughout my rounds. So I'm incorporating more work like this with that in mind. If your goal is to build muscle, this wouldn't necessarily be a priority, although I do think it's beneficial to run through phases in your program, regardless of your muscle building goals, where you're incorporating more cardiovascular conditioning. and then move into a neutral grip row. I allow a little bit more momentum at this point in my training than I used to, because again, my goal isn't primarily muscle development, but the function of the muscle and being able to keep the joint stabilized throughout a less strict range of motion. Because on the mats, you're going to be grabbing someone's gi and pulling them, and you're not necessarily going to have the chance every time to contract at the side and lock down your lat. You want to be able to move functionally and safely across a larger range of motion. Then I move into a chest-supported pronated row. It's one of my favorite moves for upper back, like trap development, as well as rear delt development. And now this seated rope row is a great movement, especially for something like Jiu-Jitsu, where you'd be grabbing someone's gi and pulling them quickly to your sides. Again, training that function and really thinking about tailoring my training to what it is that I'm trying to accomplish in other areas of my life. And I'm supersetting this with a straight arm pull down, which is one of my favorite moves for training the lats in a lengthened position. These are pretty high rep, which also is helping me train my muscles to fatigue, which is going to be helpful as I continue to build on endurance, which isn't just about cardiovascular endurance, it's also going to be about muscular endurance, where you're sustaining strength for a longer amount of time through something like a 4 to 6 minute round on the mats. Then I move into an alternating one arm pronated pull down. I love this plate pull down. It's just such a good fit, and I really feel like I'm able to fully contract my lat as well as keep the lat really engaged at the top of the movement. I like that the handles are separate, because I find that most people, including myself, are not symmetrical across the shoulder girdle. I can never say that. Shoulder girdle. You try it, okay? Shoulder girdle. So having separate handles is helpful, because I can kind of manipulate my body based on where my shoulders are most naturally positioned. Having had shoulder surgery, there's just not going to be symmetry across them. So this keeps me in a safer position where I'm still able to generate power. And then I head home. Just got back from the gym, trained pull. I've been adding in some conditioning throughout the workout, so I will superset my sets and my warm-up sets with 50 jump rope. So ultimately by the end of the workout, I have 1,000 reps in of that. Heart rate is definitely a lot more stable than it was a couple weeks ago, so it's pretty cool to see conditioning improving, and strength is really high this week, which I was just talking to Dee about, because I'm learning how to work with my body and the different hormonal phases I'm in based on my menstrual cycle, and I can now start to tell when it's a good time to push and when I need to pull back. Learning to be more objective about that instead of just grinding balls to the wall 100% of the time. So right now, that's the goal. Pushing myself towards this competition, but also working with myself along the way. What's your goal right now?
Optimize health and wellness. Be able to let my body decide what I'm going to do instead of my mind telling my body what I'm going to do. So focusing very heavily on nourishment, making sure my nutrition's in place, and hopefully getting to a place where my hormones are in balance as well.
That's great. And then ultimately, so you can do what? Or feel what? What do you want to feel?
What do you mean?
Like what
I
would
wanna
be,
feel good.
you want to feel good?
Yeah.
And like what kind of activity do you want to be able to do?
I just want to feel good in my body. I just want my body to feel good. Mine's way more about my relationship to myself, my relationship to my body. It's not focused on movement. I feel like I've focused on training, being an athlete my whole life. It's way more about healing, what movement means, and my body being able to trust me as the mind.
So that's what I was talking about earlier, is like when you have a goal, you need to really make sure that what you're doing is tailored towards that goal. Because if you just think, oh, well, I need a fitness plan, which means I need to lift 5 days a week and do cardio 5 days a week, and you're just applying some like basic cookie cutter plan to a more specific goal. But if you have a goal, you need to really make sure that what you're doing is tailored towards that goal. My goal right now is sports performance, but it's also health. So I'm finding the balance between that. Her goal is not sports performance right now. So it's really important that her plan is tailored to take that into account. So I would just say for yourself, if you're not working with a coach, really dig into what goals you have and ask yourself, how do I want to feel? What do I want to be able to do? How do I want to feel in my day-to-day life, not just in the gym or on the mats or on the court? It's like, how do I want to feel throughout my day. And then you back it up from there and start to analyze what you're doing and see if it's actually contributing to you feeling the way that you want to feel. So everything starts with a goal, and then you backtrack from there. Now, all that said, it's time for meal 2.
Slow down, hold on, take a breath. If I could, I'd make me feel less. Something in my brain causes stress. So come on, make me feel different.
So, currently making my last meal for the day, which is bison, tomatoes, microgreens, onions,
Fudge. Sorry.
and sweet potato. And then every so often, I've been mixing in some mixed greens to make it more of a salad. But I just kind of go based on my digestion for the day. So some days I'm feeling like my digestion's a little slower. I can't handle quite as much fiber at night. Some days I'm feeling good. Things are moving well. And then I add in a little bit more. So I'm just learning to play around with that. But in general, the structure of this meal is pretty similar. What are you having?
I'm having bison, rice cakes, black beans, avocado, kimchi, and a little nutritional yeast on there.
That's great.
Your guidance.
Yeah. So she asked me for a nutrition plan. So we talked a little bit about like her goals and what she's trying to accomplish, which we talked about earlier. And this is day 1 on the new plan. So we have a little bit different tastes. And so I'm always trying to find that middle ground of like making sure that her diet is very like nutrient dense and diverse, but also incorporates things she loves. Like,
You've done such a good job of helping me explore new foods, but also making sure that I have what I love. So thank you for that.
you're welcome. I feel like that's the challenge as a coach. Like when I first started, I thought I just want to give someone the best plan ever and that'll get them to their goals. But it really does not matter at all if they don't like it. Like I know blueberries are super nutrient dense and great source of fiber and antioxidants, and yet I have several clients who do not like berries whatsoever. And so I can either fight them on that or like just learn to work with them and figure out what they enjoy. So what people enjoy, they'll sustain. And that's something to think about for yourself. If you're trying to like look at a new diet or a new routine, it's like, what's sustainable? What do you actually enjoy? Because usually that will somewhat inform what you actually need. So that's the process of like learning to challenge yourself and push out of your comfort zone, but also letting your body and mind like inform you of what works best for it. So I'm gonna make this meal, have some dinner with my bae, and we'll go from there.
You wanna hold, don't hold back. Oh, you're living.